Kia ora, I'm Celia. I'm from Physio, and today we're going to be talking a little bit about prolapses. How do you get them? What are they? And what are some things that you can do about them? So, firstly, let's just talk a bit about what is a prolapse. So, a prolapse is when one or more of your pelvic organs, which are your bladder, your uterus, if you have one, or your bowel, move down lower into the vagina from their normal position. So what that movement can do is that can create sensations of heaviness, dragging, a lump, a bulge, or other sensations around the vagina or in the pelvis. And that sensation, if you're noticing it, can be quite uncomfortable or bothersome or really disruptive to your life. So very different for each person, and the degree of movement as to how far everything comes down does not correlate well with people's symptoms. So if you are noticing anything, don't panic if you feel a large lump or a bulge. That doesn't necessarily mean the symptoms are going to be any worse than anyone else's. It's just really good to notice that there's a change so that we can start doing something about it. So with the prolapse, we talked about it's the descent of those pelvic organs, and that can happen for a number of reasons, but it's because that one of the support structures helping keep them in their position has overstretched or changed, either due to straining and pressure or just changes over time, which happens everywhere in our body. So there's three layers that support the pelvic organs: the pelvic floor muscles underneath, which hold everything up above them, big job. Number two is our vaginal walls and the tissues that hold the bladder to the front, the bowel to the back, and the uterus up above, and then big strong ligaments that suspend all of these. Imagine like you're looking at a hammock slung from a tree. You're thinking this is all that's holding these organs in place against all of our abdominal contents on top, plus a baby if you've thrown a baby in there as well. So a lot of pressure on this little area. And if you are getting any of those changes with those organs moving down, that heaviness, discomfort, lump or a bulge can really impact your ability to do your normal life, whether that's exercise, work, intimacy, or even something like emptying your bladder and your bowels, which is pretty straightforward until it stops working, often something we can take for granted. But prolapse can really impact how easily you are able to empty your bladder or your bowel, or lead to things like more common urinary infections or discomfort or pain with sex. So it is something that we want to address if it is a problem for you, and if it's not, be able to screen and support you with preventing this. The good thing is prevention is the same treatment as if you've got symptoms and we want to manage them. So if you don't have any symptoms, you can start on this anyway, and hopefully that's helpful for you for down the track. So why people develop prolapse is a big range of reasons. The most common is pregnancy and childbirth, just with the amount of pressure that's on this area from pregnancy. So a C-section doesn't, unfortunately, take away all of the risk, just because the 9 months of pregnancy puts a huge amount of stretch on those pelvic organs and the tissues. But with vaginal birth, if you've had a really large baby over 4 kilos or 9 pounds, increases your risk, or if you've had an assisted delivery with the vacuum or forceps. So forceps has got a higher risk, but you can sometimes have those features with your birth and not have any prolapse, and sometimes you can have none of those and still have a prolapse, because genetics also plays a really high role in which people develop these. So sometimes there's nothing you can do to prevent this. It's just something that through the genetic lottery people can end up with. The other thing, aside from pregnancy and birth, that can create a lot of changes down here is chronic coughing and lung conditions, because that strain over time, even though it's a lower pressure than childbirth, is just a lot of it and constant. Same for constipation. If you're pushing and straining all the time on the toilet, that constant pressure can slowly over time change these tissues. So sometimes these prolapse changes have been in the works for a really long time, and then often people all of a sudden notice some symptoms, like you were totally fine and then all of a sudden there's a lump or a bulge. It usually hasn't arrived out of the blue, it's just moved low enough down that now you're actually able to feel it. So the good thing is these kind of prolapses are often the ones that respond best to the type of treatment we do with you in physio. So number one, that's looking at some pelvic floor strengthening exercises. Really good evidence to show that helps reduce prolapses, especially in that kind of early development stage of them. So working on building the strength and that lower level of support to help lift and support these organs in the pelvis to take away those symptoms. So pelvic floor exercises are one of our first protocol. Secondly is making sure the tissues are as healthy as possible. So really commonly we see people come in with these symptoms around perimenopause and menopause, and our tissues change with life, especially at that stage, and they often get a bit thinner, which means they're less supportive. So again, you can kind of almost overnight feel like you've developed a prolapse, and it's just maybe a little blip on that gradual descent of estrogen and progesterone with aging. So that's something that you could talk to your nurse practitioner or GP about with a topical estrogen. So that's an estrogen cream that you apply in and around the vagina that can be really helpful for a lot of people in reducing or sometimes completely resolving their symptoms. And that's pretty straightforward. So if that is something that's safe for you to take, talk to your practitioner about that. And then lastly, it's really important to look at reducing things that are putting strain on that. So if you do have constipation, if you do have any coughing or lung issues that are putting extra strain on that area, try to address them as best you can. Sometimes we can't take away all the things that are putting strain there, but if you can change as many as you're able to, that will help sort of slow that progress of the prolapse down over time. And as well as that, it's looking at how you're overall moving through your day-to-day activities. So if you can build up your pelvic floor muscles in your whole body, the stronger you are through your arms and through your legs, the easier it is going to be for you to do all of the tasks you want to do. Even just getting out of a chair, you're not having to put a lot of effort and strain through because you've kept your legs really strong. If you're picking up your kids and your grandkids and you've got nice strong arms, that's going to be less strain down on the prolapse and the pelvic area. So pelvic floor is important, but that whole body strength makes a huge difference to just the pressure that goes through the prolapse itself, which can mean far fewer symptoms than if you just had a strong pelvic floor alone. So we really want to encourage people to stay active as long as you're comfortable with it. We don't want to do anything that's making your prolapse feel worse, but really important to be as active as you can and not let the prolapse be something that stops you and makes you do less and less and less, because one is not only not good for the prolapse, but it's not good for your whole system, your mental health, your physical health, to look after ourselves as we move through life. So hopefully that gives you a few little starting points. So we're looking at working on your pelvic floor muscles, taking away any excess strain through that area, and looking at keeping your whole body nice and strong, and asking your nurse practitioner or GP for any medication for hormone replacement therapy if needed. If none of those are quite cutting the mustard for you, we do have lots of pessary options. So we fit those here at Elevate, and a lot of other GP and physio providers fit them if you're not able to get into a gynecologist as well. So they're an amazing option. Another whole video on that coming soon, that provide a lot of support, kind of like a good sports bra down there. And they can be life-changing for a lot of people, which is really cool. But if you need any more advice or have any questions about this, feel free to get in touch. We always love to hear what you think of info that we put out there, or if you've got anything you want covered and to see in another video, let us know. We'd love to go off on those tangents as well. Could talk about this forever. Or if you do have any of these symptoms and you want some help, please reach out. We're able to provide in-person appointments in Nelson or telehealth appointments anywhere in the country. Have a great day.